In the year with to experience Dune Part 2 on the big screen. This was actually my favorite film that I watched in a movie theater in 2024. I believe it's next level filmmaking. I think it is blockbuster movie making at its absolute finest. It is visually spectacular, but there's also this richness and this thoughtfulness and this soulfulness and this spirituality that is coursing throughout it. I know we tend to throw around the word masterpiece a lot, but I really do think that this film is a masterpiece in my opinion, and I'm thrilled and honored today that we have the co-writer, producer, director, Denis Villeneuve.
Thank you very much. I want to take the opportunity right at the start to thank you all for coming to watch the movie in the theater on January 2nd. That I wasn't expecting. But seriously, that deeply touched me. Thank you.
Yes, you said that to me backstage, and I said, who wouldn't want to watch this again on the big screen? I wish it was just playing in theaters all of the time. It was always an option for us, but congratulations on concluding your adaptation of Frank Herbert's original novel, Dune. As you look back at both of these Dune films, what's something that you learned making Dune Part 1 that was instrumental in the way that you approached making Dune Part 2?
It's like everything was instrumental. We kept joking with my film crew that Part 1 was like a massive rehearsal to do Part 2 because the movie, when we started the process, we felt confident. We knew the alphabet, we knew the world has been defined, everything, but it was a much more ambitious project. It was a beast. It was a lot of challenges, and I really pushed my crew. It's interesting to hear Greg Fraser about how everything we had to develop and massive challenge. It's I stick to the idea that I wanted to shoot with natural light, which is not in the real desert, which is was not easy for the crew.
I do have a question about that, but before, let's go to the desert. Talk a little bit about sand, not necessarily how much sand you had in your shoes at the end of any given day. I'm sure it was a substantial amount. But also, you shot Dune Part 2 primarily in the deserts of Abu Dhabi. Talk about sand, and what did you learn? What was something unexpected that you discovered about sand and staging these big sequences, but also these very personal, intimate sequences, not just on sand, but also within the desert landscape?
At first I discovered that I was out of shape. No, but it's like, it's exhausting to work in those conditions, and it's like, to state the obvious, we were shooting in the real environment, as you said, so it was like, it required a tremendous amount of logistics to protect the crew. And there was a period of time, specifically on Part 2, there was like Part 1, we had access to shade, but in Part 2, we spent weeks in the deep desert, and there's a part of the day, there's 2 hours between 11:30 and 1:30 where your brain starts to boil like a bowl of soup, and everybody's become a bit stupid, including myself and the crew. And I knew at that time that I had to make sure that the amount of work we do, not to be too much ambitious at this time because it was too warm. The shooting in the sand is like shooting in the snow. You have to deal with ridiculous challenges like footsteps. I mean, it required a lot of discipline in the film crew because the way we shot the movie again using natural light meant that we had to choose specific spots in the desert that were perfect for a certain close-up, and for the white shot we choose another sand dunes according to the sun positions, and to make sure that those would stay pristine. We had to own the desert technically, and to make sure that the crew would respect and those are huge crews, because the more you have people, you have more and more people to take care of, more and more people, so it becomes like a little army. The thing that was specific about the shooting of Part 2, I would say that was different from Part 1, is that there were more action scenes in the depth of the desert, and in order to maximize our schedule, we used a device, a software that Greg Fraser was capturing all the environments virtually. Like if you like the opening sequence when we see that fight in reality happens in maybe 16 different locations. Let's say we have to, because you do a shot and to do the reverse to have the right sun position, you have to move the whole crew to a different spot and to have the perfect timing for this. Greg capture all the environments in an Unreal Engine. So he was coming back to the production office and Budapest after the scout, and we were able to know that on November 3rd at 9:45, if we want to put Rebecca Ferguson with a rock smashing an Arcanine soldier, we have to be there at 9:45 to have the perfect sun position. No? And all the schedule was designed this way. I thought it was interesting to see that the computer were using prep like that for the sun patterns, and it made our shoot an incredible puzzle for my first AD, but very efficient for cinematography.
You mentioned the opening action sequence, which is actually one of my favorite sequences in the film, because I think you do such a brilliant job of reintroducing all of these characters, but without a lot of exposition, and it's all within the foundation of this just marvelous action sequence. And it's funny, towards the end of the year, a lot of people were sharing their favorite shots from films on social media. And to say Dune Part 2, most of the shots were from this film. But there was one shot in particular a lot of people kept sharing, and it's the shot of the Harkonnen soldiers sort of walking off the cliff and then floating, and then you have this like deep burnt red behind them. Just curious, like, how do you execute a shot like that?
The idea that in the book, this is the idea that humanity mastered gravity, that they can use a suspensor system for lighting or for vehicles, or also for, you can have portable Holtzman system that allows you to defy gravity, but there's no mention of how to move with those systems. And I love the idea that, like in dreams, you fly like in scuba diving. You know, the whole idea was to do scuba diving in the desert, defying gravity and climbing, and those are images that came as I was writing the screenplay. And there was something exciting about it for me, because it was like, it reminded me of the movies I loved from the 70s, old sci-fi movies. And the way to do this was to do it as much as possible on camera, meaning that we had like Zimmer, a fantastic stunt coordinator that created those rigs with wire rigs where we were actually having stunts flying on cliffs with those and the rest is a bit of CG dub, but it's quite I was quite excited by the result of it, because it captured that idea of strangeness that I was looking, that you feel that you are with an alien technology, with people that are trying to, most importantly, I was in love with the idea that we feel that the Harkonnen soldiers are foreigners, alien to this world, that they are like, they don't, Harkonnen don't adapt, they just colonize, and but they never adapt to the environment where they are, and that's their main weaknesses. And I tried to express that in this first sequence.
You know, and you spoke a little bit about the sunlight, and actually the last time, my last watch on the film, I paid a lot of attention to the way you used light. Not just on Arrakis, but also the Black Sun, the Harkonnens. You know, did you have a general approach to, like, the opening sequence felt like it was at sunset, that you had that big stage sequence when they're fighting the machine, and they're kind of running underneath the shadows of the wings coming down from the ship. Like, did you just have, did you know as you were writing what time of day you wanted these to be shot, and like, what was your general approach?
Yeah, it has, light is, of course, our ally, nature is our ally, and if we had shot the whole movie at noon, it would have been like a blend, I was trying to create contrast. I was trying to create a dynamic contrast in the movie, with the color palette of different time of the day, to open the movie with an eclipse, something unexpected that will shake the audience right at the beginning, aesthetically, and to bring vivid colors that will slowly disappear, dissolve, and go back to the Arrakis we knew. And then each sequence was written according to a specific time of the day to sustain dynamic aesthetically, and to feel that each sequence will have its own identity, and to create sometimes a proper aesthetic, propulsive momentum this way.
It felt like those deep oranges and those deep reds were really important to you as well.
And at the beginning, we used, what I love also is to work with cinematographers that are not afraid to burn the boat. Right at the start, we shot with filters. We did a tremendous amount of research with filters. So we shot with those filters at first to create that look that will emulate the idea of that they are fighting under an eclipse, and that the Fremen will attack when the eclipse is at its darkest moment. The idea that the Fremen use nature as their ally. And what is crazy is that, of course, I wrote that in my office in Montreal. And when we came in Jordan and we shot the actual sequence, there was an actual real eclipse appearing at the day of shooting. That was mind-blowing. And when the eclipse happened, it was a partial eclipse, not total, but still, it's quite a coincidence. And I stopped the shoot and we put all the cameras we had on the eclipse. And the real eclipse is in the movie, actually. And that was, I knew the gods of cinematography.
You know, one thing I think that as an audience, you don't pay enough attention to, because it's so authentically weaved into the film, with the languages, not just of the Harkonnen, but also the Fremen. What was your general approach to the languages in terms of creating them, and then when you decided to weave them into the narrative?
The main languages are part of the book. It's a very important, one of the beauty of the book is the different cultures, and specifically the Fremen culture. All Frank Herbert dive and debate and explain and explore the Fremen culture and its language. And there are a lot of hints of that language in the book. And we hired a linguist, David Peterson, who developed that language. Its own syntax, grammar, logic, poetry inside. Like, for instance, yes. Fortunately, it's not mine. When Chani says to Stilgar, you're insane, in Chakotsa she says, you drink sand, because that's an expression of insanity for a Fremen to drink sand. And so the language was very sophisticated like that, and each actor had to go to the Fremen school, the Chakotsa language school, where they created the clips to pronounce each word, each sentence, and there was a translation. So when Timothée Chalamet does his speech to the Fremen tribes at the end, he knows exactly what he's saying. It's not gibberish, it's not like temer. It's real word that means something for real, so he can have roots and really put his intentions and emotions in the right place and really interpret that language. And it really moved me to see the amount of commitment of each actor who really learned the language. We had a dialect coach on set that was there to make sure that the pronunciation would be right. And it gave, like, I talked about that earlier at the press tour, but it gave some crazy moments where I was super happy with a shot. And Fabien, the linguist coach who was coming on set, said, actually, Denis, the pronunciation of ha is not exactly, we should do another take. And I said, come on, dude, it's a fake language. but I absolutely adore all the crew and the actors. We took that seriously. And we did the same with the Harkonnen language. That is a little bit less elaborated, to be honest, but the idea of we feel those chant, we hear those chant in the arena. It's all about culture clash, and different vision of the world expressed through language.
You mentioned the arena. Let's go there, because that's another just brilliant moment in the film, and it kind of shakes you out of being on Arrakis when we go there. Talk a little bit about setting up that arena sequence and what it was like to film that, and then also if you could talk a little bit about Austin Butler and what you saw in him that convinced you, though he can play not just a psychopath, but also a psychopath that has a vulnerability to him that he's trying desperately not to expose.
It's there's a lot of cues about what the arena looked like in the book. That idea was white sand, triangular arena with the shape of the doors. But one thing I love about the book is how Frank Herbert is studying the impact of the environment on people, how it defines your ecosystem, define your cultures, your religion, your habits, your behaviors, your poetry, etc. And there's a lot, when you look at the desert, you understand the Fremen. You know about the Fremen just by the correlation between the environment and their culture. But for the Arcanine, there was not a lot of hints. We know that their planet is destroy the environment, that it's an industrial planet. So I said, what would be the clue left in my toolbox to express there? And I thought about the light. The idea that, as I was writing, I thought that the idea that what if their sunlight was killing the colors instead of revealing them? So it would be like a harsh sunlight that would be black and white without nuance, a fascist world where everything is binaries and it looks the same, and the idea of black and white. And of course, my cinematographer loved the idea. and Greg came with the idea. We were testing different, because I wanted a black and white that will have a singular quality, alien light, alien feeling to it. And Greg came with the idea of IR, infrared cameras. Infrared usually is something that digital camera are designed to block. So it's like a noise. But we did the opposite. Greg played in the software and let just that kind of light came in. And it created that beautiful, eerie black and white where we see through the skin, the eyes are very piercing, like insect-like. And the only thing with that is that you cannot go back. When you shoot with that, I said to the studio, you understand, you better love it now because you can love it. And I love the fact that the Legendary, they are very, they don't operate with fear. They trusted us, and we shot the whole sequence with those devices, with those cameras that create that alien look that I really love. Now about Austin Butler, he's a tremendous actor. I had seen Baz Luhrmann had shared with me some part of Elvis because I was really interested by this by him, and I was floored by how he portrayed the king. And I'd seen in also the Tarantino movie. I've seen his work, and I saw that there's a potential to bring someone that will have the necessary sex appeal and presence on screen to play portrait Fedor of them. And honestly, he's one of the best actors I've worked with in years. He's tremendous. He's a force. He's really a force. He's someone that is willing to try. He has a massive range and is willing to try different things. And Scoop, Austin and I are not psychopaths, so we have to explore together how we will express that, how we will approach it. It came through movement a lot. To do like a little laboratory where we were playing with the way he walked, the way he moved, the way he talks, the way Austin came with the idea that, which I love, that he should express himself with an accent that will be close to Stellan Skarsgård, Swedish accent, which is, I love this idea. But we developed some tics together that when he gets excited, he has that kind of orgasmic lizard, which like that I love. We develop the characters this way. But it's a thing about casting that I truly excites me is that at the end of the day, it's a bet. Say you choose someone, you hope it's all theory until you put all the ingredients in front of the camera, you say action. And when I remember when Austin did his first shot, I was like, oh, thank you. And I'm really proud of what he did with Pedro. It's a character that is one of the most, if not the most famous character in the novel, and he has big shoes to fill. So yeah, I'm really proud of him.
Yeah, no, he's fantastic. I kind of have to ask also, you talk about casting and it's a bet. Timothée Chalamet, you bring him in, for both of these films, and you kind of know where he has to start and where he has to end. And I think the arc that he shows, and I think this is one of his great performances across these two films. What did you see in him originally that convinced you that he could become what he does at the end of it?
Two things is Timothée has this incredible youth in his features, and he looks like 16 years old for the first film, but also he's an old soul, having that kind of heritage from he's half French, half American, and having all that cultural background, and he's a really thoughtful, brilliant, I would say deep actor. You know, someone that is much older than what he looks like. Also, and I had seen things in his past work where I saw that gravitas and that when he grounds himself, he becomes a giant in front of the camera. But so for the first movie, I kept keeping bringing him down. You know, I kept saying, Timothée, not now. You're not invited yet. You have to stay young, stay young. I have to keep his youth to play with the power of his youth. But for the second one, I went the opposite and exploited if I can use that word, is more darkest and more mature inner side.
We had a conversation a few months ago when Timothée was there, and I feel like he told a story about how you weren't crazy about him speaking the language in that final speech. You didn't know if he had it in him to sort of that he thought that he was going to have to do it in English, but you told him, but he wanted to do it in the language. And so, just speak to that a little bit.
But it's a pivotal scene, and I wanted to make sure that I wanted to give him all the tools to be able to bring it home, and we did it and in English and in Chakapsa. It blew my mind when he did it in Chakapsa, because it's just that there was so much subtleties and complexity that I wanted to make sure that everything will land. But it wasn't interesting, because by doing it in English, then it's like finding the right emotional road to it, and then we did it in Chakapsa many times, not many times, we did it a few times, and it blew my mind. I mean, it required a lot of time to be able to perform such a scene in fake languages.
I think Zendaya also does a tremendous job, and I remember when we did talk a few months ago, I was talking to her about this, and I thought it was really interesting how she's quiet for that last kind of quarter of the film. She doesn't really say anything, but it's all in her face and her expressions. I'm just curious to get your take on Zendaya and why you thought she was right for the role, and then maybe you could talk a little bit about how her finale in Dune Part 2 and what you were approaching there.
I love actors that are good listeners. There's something that fascinates me when I made a whole movie about just that. I have people listening to the other, just reacting to what the revelations or the truth that is being displayed to them, and to see the reaction. And it's a thing that I love with Zendaya, her capacity to express herself just with her eyes, and to go to a different range of emotion or ideas, just with her very minimalistic, precise behaviors, expressions. And I knew she had that inside her. I had worked a little bit with her on Part 1, and I knew that she had that capacity, because we had did some experiment on Part 1 with the Zendaya, where I spent a day with her in the desert and a cinematographer, and just shooting elements for the false vision, and I was so impressed by her flexibility, how daring, how she has no fear, and she an incredible ability to play with in a zone of the, how can I say that in English, imagination, where it's unrelated to reality, but to go in the subconscious zone, and where she grounds that and bring that home. I was really impressed. Rebecca Ferguson has that quality too, but Zendaya is, I knew that and it was very important for me, that this final act of the film will be perceived through her point of view. That she will be, because Chani's character is different in the book. In the book, she's walking in false shadows. She's a believer. And I gave Chani her own agenda. I wanted her to become our moral compass at the end, so the movie will be perceived as a cautionary tale, and not a celebration of poetry, but more a warning against charismatic figure. It was Frank Herbert's idea to do that with the first book, but he was disappointed by the way the book was received, and he wrote a second book called Dune Messiah to correct that perception. where we understand that Paul made the wrong choices, and I wanted to feel that at the end of part 2, that they will land more precisely, and I use Chani for that. And that is why I put a lot of pressure on that third act.
Yeah, I've heard you say that you feel like your adaptation is more loyal to Frank Herbert than it is the book itself.
Yeah, exactly. For those reasons, I feel that I hope with humility that he will have been happy with this idea of giving Chani more substance at the end, and that she becomes our point of view on the journey that Paul actually is embracing is the wrong one. He becomes a colonizer himself, and that's his way. And yet she feels her heart is betrayed, but her ideals are betrayed as well.
Yeah, but I love how it switches kind of perspective when we are seeing the story now through her eyes at the end, because it's like our hearts are also breaking. This is a character we've been rooting for as well.
Yeah, it's really one of the big difference between the book and the most important and yeah, definitely something that I'm very happy with.
Have to bring up the score from Hans Zimmer, and which is just, I think we were just talking about the sound. You could hear it. I was sitting downstairs. You could just hear the sound on this film, the score. What were some of those early conversations with Hans about the score and what you wanted it to sound like and feel like?
The thing is that the soundtrack is really like a continuity of part 1. It's like in a way, part 1 and part 2. It's a one big movie that is cut in half. That's why I'm absolutely against the decision of the Academy to exclude Hans, frankly, because I feel that his score is one of the best score of the year, that has tremendously personality, but is rooted in part 1, of course, because it's a continuity. But not here to complain, because I absolutely love this artist. I don't use the word genius often, but Hans, he is one. And his ambition was to create an alien score with an heartbreaking love theme. I remember, the only time I saw Hans Zimmer nervous is when we talked about the love theme. When I said to him, so what would be something important for you? I would love to you to write something that would break our heart about that love, that young woman that falls with this young man, that young man that falls with the girl and their culture, and then at the end, because the whole movie would be structured on that love story, and he became pale. And I said, those are the most difficult to write. But I think that he did something that is truly remarkable, that love theme at the end, that I think is exactly what the movie needed. And Hans had been my partner since day one. When I embarked on the journey of making both Dune movies, the first artist I contacted was Hans Zimmer. I knew he loved the book. I knew he wanted to work with me on this project. And is someone that has known the book by heart. You know, it was my closest ally to discuss about the underlayer of what the movie meant, and was able to help me with the music to bring that sacred quality I was looking for, also that spiritual aspect and that alien feeling also that I'm really in love with that score. Yeah, frankly, I'm very. It's a privilege and an honor for me to have the chance to work with Hans Zimmer on both movies.
And you know, as we begin to wrap up, I always like to ask this because we don't always give ourselves credit. And so I'm just curious, as you step away from these two films, what are you most personally proud of?
Well, it's a difficult question because when you finish a film as a film director, so those of you who direct films, it's like, I don't know about you guys, but me, I feel it's a cross mix between pain and joy and failures and successes. Like you see more the failure than the success, and it's like, and you just say to yourself, I'll do better next time. I'll do better next time. You guys are from New York. I don't know, I'm a bit late in the news, but there's a movie that was made in 2010, sorry, that is called The Clock, from Christian Martin.
Oh yeah.
I don't know, for those who have not seen The Clock, it's a 24-hour movie that is made out of 12,000 shots taken from the whole history of cinema. And so you can go from James Bond to a Bergman movie, to an Antonioni shot, to then a shot from a movie from Laurel and Hardy. It's a cross mix between a Jean-Luc Godard and a Chris Marker movie. I was blown away last week by this film. It's at the moment, I encourage you to go, you can walk in the theater, you can stay there 10 minutes or 4 hours, but it's incredible, it's a web of time, and each shot is linked with the idea of time, and we see through the history of cinema, the impact of how the shot of a watch or a clock, the suspense, the tension, the beauty of time. So you watch for 24 hours time, and it's super entertaining, I swear.
Yeah, without a doubt. And the next time we're up here, I'm going to ask you how the clock influenced your next question. So be ready for that question. Denis Villeneuve, the film is Dune Part 2. My name is Eric.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.